What's up with Toyota and electric vehicles? They used to be pioneers in electrification, having started the whole evolution of hybrid electric cars more than 20 years ago. But since then, they've been dragging their feet with pure electric vehicles, even having some marketing campaigns being not too kind to electric vehicles. But now there's this. This is the bZ4X. This is the first 100% fully electric vehicle from Toyota. Well, at least the first one built on an exclusively electric platform. So in this video, we're going to do the electric exam of the bZ4X. Find out, is it a good car? Is it a good EV? And what's up with Toyota and electric cars anyway? This is the electric exam of the bZ4X, and you're watching Totally Electric. Toyota seems to not have been very clear on what the future of the personal transport is. It seems that they've got their hybrids, then they had the self-charging hybrids, which is really a confusing marketing term. They have their hydrogen cars, and now finally they have electric cars. Now this one is a couple of years old, and in fact there's a new version out this same year, which got 3 kilowatt hours more battery and a few other minor upgrades, but it's basically very, very similar to the car that we've got here in this video. So what is the future of transport? According to Toyota, it makes all the sense in the world to make hybrids, because you can make a hybrid with a smaller battery, which is one you use every day. And with the battery that you put in one of these, you can make maybe 8 to 10 hybrids, which is better overall for the environment because you use 10 hybrids instead of 10 gas-powered cars, and instead of just one electric car. I understand that argument, but I do think that Toyota has got to look to the future of battery electric vehicles. So the bZ4X had a bit of a troubled start. It had a recall campaign just after launch because the wheels were falling off some kind of screws that weren't fitted correctly. And then there's the name, the bZ4X. Word salad, some might say. It's like beyond zero, and the 4X is because of the size and the type of car it is. But still, not the most marketing-y name, right? But maybe this is actually a really good car. Maybe it's a good EV. That's what we're going to check out in this very video. Because this is the electric exam. In the electric exam, we go through 8 different categories where we evaluate electric cars. We look into all the things that are really important, give them a score from 0 to 10, and then we sum them all up, put in the weighing of each category, and we give it a final score between 0 and 100. You can then compare this car with others that have also gone through the same system on our website. Let's have a look at the specs for the bZ4X. This is the advanced version, so it's 4x2, so it's only front wheel drive. It's got a motor sitting on the front axle, which outputs 150 kilowatts or 204 horsepower. It's got a battery which is 71.4 kilowatt hours in size, but only 64 of those are actually accessible to the user. With that, it can supposedly drive 513 kilometers according to the WLTP cycle. That's if you get this entry-level version. If you get the bigger trim levels, which got more stuff on the inside, and the biggest version has even got 4x4 driving, you get less range. So 513 is the most you get out of this car. It's 4 meters 69 long, it's a meter 86 wide and a meter 65 tall, which for me would be D-segment SUV. We've got 5 seats, 5 doors, 452 liters in the trunk, and we can charge this vehicle at 150 kilowatts in DC or 11 in AC. Now we're going to test all of these numbers in this vehicle because that's what we do here in the electric exam. What an aggressive design. It's really angular and looks very different from Toyotas of the past. You know, just look at this bit here. It looks like the snout of a shark. It's got all sorts of angles and gaps going on, like on a sports car, right? Besides from that, we've got no sensors or parking sensors here in the front, because this is the advanced, the entry-level version of it. This angular design makes it look a bit sporty and quite a bit different from previous Toyotas, but actually they're starting to adapt this design language, which was first featured on this car, into other models, sort of like the CHR and other very popular models that they have now. kind of big in the front, right? It's got a long nose here. And if we go on and have a look at the side profile, now you can really see that this looks like a big, chunky car. The roof line is quite high up. The glasses are tinted on other versions, and in fact, this metal roof is substituted with a glass roof on higher trim versions as well. We have massive rear view mirrors, which makes it really easy to see what's going on. From the inside, we have the charge port located front left, just behind the front wheel, which in my opinion is probably the worst location that you could put it, because if you park front in towards a charger, then you're quite far away from the charger. If you want to charge at a Tesla charging station, the Tesla charging station will be over there on the other side. Not very useful in my opinion. The roof line seems quite sporty. There's this little thing here that looks like a spoiler but isn't. Don't really know what it is. It's just a decorative piece here. Then it looks like it's got massive wheel arches because they're painted with black plastic. Yeah, it makes it look quite aggressive. I kind of like that. At the back, we got massive set of plastics covering the rear lights, which also have a bar that runs across the entire thing here. If we open it up, it's manual opening only, at least in the entry-level version. In the higher level trims, they are automatic. We've got 452 liters here on the inside, with some extra space under the floor. Not much, just enough for your cables. Oh yeah, and we can cover it if we want to with this little thing here so that people won't steal anything, because you can actually see what's down here. Tinted glass is not available in the entry-level version either. So very, very different and interesting and aggressive design. I kind of like it. It's just not very Toyota. What do you guys think? So if we got 452 liters in the back, have we got any additional storage space under the bonnet? Let's open it up and find out. Uh-oh. It's beeping because it's turned on. I don't want to turn it off because it's too hot out here. Let's see, there we go. Right. No additional space. There's motors, refrigeration, tubes, all sorts of stuff. I have no idea what all this stuff does. It probably moves the car and, you know, keeps it cool and all that, but there's no room for your dirty socks in here. In fact, it looks like Toyota could need even more room. There's so much stuff in here. I've rarely seen so much stuff in an electric vehicle, but no frunk. So let's test the actual highway range of the Toyota bZ4X. Officially 513 kilometers WLTP, but let's see what that is when we're traveling at highway speeds, because that's where it really, really matters. So we're just going to put it into drive and we're just going to go. And I'm going towards Barcelona until I'm halfway through the battery, and then I'm just going to turn around. Let's see how far we can go. I must apologize for wearing sunglasses, but the glare from the sun on this piano black is just really fantastically annoying. So I have to wear sunglasses for this. Let's see how well you can plan a route with the navigation system here. So I'm just going to use the voice assistant. Let's go to Barcelona. Just thinking about it.
I found one result. There's Barcelona in 419 kilometers.
Okay, so it did find Barcelona, and it says route guidance will start now. It is, yes, it is a bit funny because it gives me units in miles on the navigation, but it's talking to me in kilometers because it sort of used the local settings, but the GPS and the integrated system, the voice system, they have two different settings. Before I had one in Spanish and one in English, but now it's supposedly all in English. Right, so it's found a route, which is good. But I'm clearly not going to get all the way to Barcelona, which is like, I don't know, a 5-hour drive on however much battery I've got left. So we probably should add some charging stations there. How do we do that? So you click on the route and then add a charging point, and let's see what it does. It's thinking about it. And in fact, it has done it. It's found, well, 2 charging stations that I need to stop at on my way to Barcelona. Perfect. That's really good. I like that. However, let's see how much information have we got about them. I click on the destination. So we got the Ionity, good choice. Then you got the charging station, and the information is a little bit technical. It says charging station, IEC 62196-3 Type 2 combo, parenthesis, Menekes, number of connectors 6. They are 900 to 900 volts. And it's 389 amps. You have to be an engineer to understand this. What is all this rubbish? I just need to know what's the cost, how many available stations are there, and what's the charging speed. Not all this jibbery. What is it? What are you even talking about? It doesn't actually say the charging speed in kilowatts. It just so you have to remember the law of Ohm, where it was like, what is it? Amps multiplied by volts will give you the watts, right? I'm not going to do that right now. Funny. I mean, it does the job, but the interface could be a lot better. So when you buy a Toyota, you do not want accelerating driving experience, accelerating like a maniac and going through a corner, skidding your wheels. No. You want quite the opposite. You want something that's just solid, comfortable, and you know what? This car is exactly that. The driving experience inside this car is just like, yeah, I could drive for hundreds of miles and it's just gonna work. It's silent, there's no wind noise, there's nothing that rattles, everything's just good in terms of driving it. It's also relatively comfortable. The suspension is good and I don't feel like I'm driving over every pothole here. It's well isolated. It's just a good, solid Toyota experience driving this car. The steering wheel is like quite tiny, but I'll talk more about that when I talk about, you know, why it is so tiny, because it has to do with this funny screen I've got here behind me. But again, it feels solid and the steering column here is big and chunky and yeah, a good solid driving experience as it should be in a Toyota. I'm at 55% battery now, so this might be a good time to turn around. I've got an exit right here coming up in 350 yards. I think it'll be this one. So I'll just take that, turn back and go back towards Madrid. Let's see how far we can go. I hope it hasn't calculated badly any percentages or anything. I'm still not getting any indication that we're not going to get there from the GPS, so I think we'll be fine. We'll try it at least. I now have only 20% of battery left, which is the same, according to the car, 67 kilometers of available range. However, according to the GPS system, I've still got to drive 35 miles until I get to the charger. Now, my problem is, I haven't got the foggiest idea about how I can change this to display the range in kilometers. And this is obviously in kilometers, so I don't know what's more, 66 kilometers or 34 miles? I have no idea. I hope I've got plenty of battery, and I hope that my calculation about where I turned around was correct. But I don't know. Really? Can't you change this from miles to kilometers? Surely there must be a way. Surely. Okay, so I'm now at 9% battery, and I've still got another 16 miles before I get to the charger. Funny thing is, according to the car, I've got 34 kilometers of range. So as long as I'm somewhat comfortable with the fact that 16 miles is less than 33 kilometers, which I'm not sure, but I guess it is, then I guess I should get there fine. The car is complaining now, saying that I need to charge, etc. But I'm not going to do any of the sort. I am going to get to the charger. And I'm praying a little bit. It'll be fine. The car is complaining a little bit, or at least saying that I need to charge the car as soon as possible. And it sort of pops up with some charging suggestions here on the screen. However, I'm not going to do any of the sort. I'm just going to drive until we get to the charger I already have planned to go to within 15 kilometers. Sorry, 15 miles. Oh gosh, I hope I'll get there. Oh, I made it. 4% left on the battery, but this is my exit, and I've got my charger right here, so no problem. Don't know why you were getting all upset, all nervous about this. It's just fine. Right, so let's bring out the calculator, see how much distance we've covered, how much battery we've got left and all that. I'm done with the range test. I've driven 311 kilometers, but remember, I had used up 1% before I got to the highway, and I've still got 4% left on the battery. So we have to add another 5% on top of that, meaning that in, today's temperature, which was sunny and relatively hot between 27 and 32 degrees Celsius, however many Fahrenheit that is, and with a speed of 120 kilometers an hour, almost constantly. I've had hardly any traffic. So with those conditions, in this car, you can do 327 kilometers using the entire battery. That's not bad. And the average consumption, or the average energy usage, has been 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So my next test is to see how much time will it take me to charge up another 200 kilometers, which in this case would be 35.4 kilowatt hours. Let's check it out. So I'm at this Thunder charging station. This one will do 360 kilowatts, and the car should do a little bit less than that, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to use my Thunder Easy card, and there's an RFID reader. But if you're traveling through Spain, you can use your own RFID from whichever provider you prefer. You can also just pay with a credit card. You can actually, there are 5 different ways of paying, and these are very, very reliable charging systems. That's why I like working with Thunder here. So let's charge it up. I've started with a really low state of charge, which is great for getting a high speed. Now we're at 126. Let's see how it goes. So I started the charging with my card, but I can actually follow along on my mobile phone because it's linked to my account, of course. So I can follow and see what's the charging speed and how much more time I need to be stationed here in order to charge. So if you're traveling to Spain, I do recommend that you try out a Thunder. It's an excellent operator, and it's not very expensive either. Funny enough, we're now down to 110 kilowatts already, and we're only at 16%. I'm not quite sure why we haven't reached 150. Maybe it needed to heat up the battery, though I've been driving for 300 kilometers and it's actually quite hot out here today. We're at 46% battery and we're charging at only 60 kilowatts now. That is quite low. And in fact, I'm going to put the charging curve up here on screen because it is rather strange. We started off with only 5% battery and it immediately shot up to 135, 140 kilowatts, which is all right. But then it dropped a little bit. And then again, it crept upward. So it again reached 120 kilowatts, never quite up to the 150 kilowatts that's supposed to be doing. Then suddenly at 33% state of charge, it dropped off really sharply, all the way down to 75 kilowatts, which is basically half of what it's supposed to be able to do. And now we're at 60 kilowatts. So for this vehicle, the charging curve isn't all what it should be. I'm almost more interested in having a flat charging curve than actually having a high maximum charging speed, because that means that if I have a flat curve instead of sort of in a spike and then going down quickly, that if I have to charge more than 150, 200 kilometers, it doesn't take me forever to do this. Now for this car, the first 100 kilometers took just 10 minutes, which is fine. But the next 100, they're going to take considerably more. Okay, let's see what information we get inside the car while we're actually charging it. Now here on this binnacle display, it'll tell me that I've got 20 minutes until I've charged to 80% and 50 minutes until it's fully charged. And that's it. Like anywhere, there's nothing on the main screen either. There's about, what I've been driving. I can program the charging, but there's no information about the current charging speed or the current charging session. I have absolutely no idea. This is a surprisingly poor amount of information when I want to charge my car. However, there's one thing that's really funny about this car. I can't demo it to you right now because I'm actually charging right now. But this is the only electric vehicle I know of where you can change the maximum charging speed in DC. So if I'm fast charging and I don't want the fast charging session to be over too fast, I can limit this for example, 50 kilowatts. So that even if I'm at a super fast charger, it will never charge faster than 50 kilowatts. Very good for occupying the superchargers more time than you need to if you have to go out for lunch or something like that and don't want to pay the surplus charge for occupying it while the charging is finished. We had to charge 35.4 kilowatt hours in order to do 200 kilometers, which took us 26.5 minutes. Right now it's charging at 48 kilowatts, which is not a lot. And we're at 60% state of charge. So the first 100 kilometers took us just 10 minutes. Now the next 100 took us 16.5 minutes. So let's check out the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 0 to 62 miles per hour speed on this Toyota bZ4X. Now this is the entry-level version. There's a fly in here. Woohoo! This is the entry-level version called the Advanced, so it's got front-wheel drive only. And I'm using the Draggy, so I'll put the Draggy on top of the car. And now all I have to do is just put my foot down. There's no sport mode or acceleration mode or anything like that. I've just got normal or eco mode. There's also snow, but I doubt that's going to give me extra 0 to 100 time. So yeah, let's just try it out. I've got the regenerative braking turned off. Don't know if that helps with the acceleration. We've reset the Draggy. Official time, 7.5 seconds from 0 to 100, but we did it in 7.39. All right, 0.1 second faster than the official specs. Now this being a Toyota, I don't know if anybody cares, but hey, not bad. Now there are only two driving modes, that is eco or normal. There's no sport driving mode. Well, I also have snow, so I can activate snow, and I guess it's free traction or something like that. I can turn ESP off, and then if I had the 4x4 version as top of the range, I could activate four-wheel traction here, but I don't have it, so I've just got a blank button instead. What I do have is the option to activate regenerative braking on this car, and it works quite well. Look, I'm doing 90 kilometers an hour, I'm letting go, now I'm doing 80, now I'm doing 70. It's a very natural, progressive slowing down of the vehicle. And it's actually quite comfortable, and it will help you reduce significantly the amount of energy you use when you're driving around, either in the city or like now on secondary roads like this. It's a good system. Now in this, it's front wheel drive, and I've got 200 horsepower. So typically when I'm coming out of a roundabout and I put my foot down, well, aside from all my stuff falling around in the car, typically these 200 horsepower electric cars with front wheel drive will skid quite a lot, but this one doesn't. It's actually very, very controllable. I think it's well adjusted. I really, really like what they've done to set up this car. It's a very comfortable car to drive, and I also appreciate that I've got quite high tires on this thing. So if I go over a pothole or a speed bump or something like that, it doesn't feel like everything is shaking or falling apart inside the car. Yep, it's a nice, comfortable drive. Only real problem with the regenerative braking is that it doesn't come to a full stop. So I've let go of it now, and it's turned on. So it goes down to 30, goes down to 20, goes down to 10, and then it just keeps going. So if I want to stop, I have to put my foot on the brake. Now, it's a first world problem, I know. But it's not true one-pedal driving. Inside the BC. Is it bZ4X or bZ4X? I don't know. Inside the bZ4X, the strangeness just continues. For example, there's no glove box. So there's nowhere to leave my paperwork and stuff. I have to have them here in the middle, floating around in the car. So instead of using that, I have it down there, but fortunately I've got plenty of additional space here in the middle where I can have my cables, some things like that. I can take this out, and then I can have my safety jacket, all sorts of stuff. I've got two cup holders here. Let me just clean up after myself. I've got this space down here, which is for storing your mobile phone. So if you want to, you can put your mobile phone there, but then you can't charge it because this isn't wireless charging. It is in the higher trims of this car, but not in this one. But fortunately they've put a little USB charging port there, but if you plug it in, it won't fit. My phone is just a regular phone. I bet there'll be no phones that can fit in here with the charging cable plugged in. Strange. But no worries, you have additional charging places. Down below this, you have 2 USB charging ports plus a 12-volt standard outlet. If we move further up, we have the gear selector, which is nice and chunky, and I like the fact you have to push it down, turn it forward, push it down, turn it to the left for drive or for reverse. Very nice. Then you have these standard buttons. One of them is the what do you call it, regenerative braking that you need to put on every time. It doesn't remember it. You have a hold, you got eco mode, snow, off, and then there are 3 buttons that remind you that you have the entry level trim and you're too poor to pay for whatever these buttons do. That's a bit of a sad thing with buttons, right? They just remind you that you don't have enough money. Further up, we got actual physical buttons for managing climate controls, and then we got this. This screen is ridiculous. This is 8 inches, but there's room for a 12-inch screen. But again, this is the entry-level version, so they didn't put in the 12-inch screen, just the 8-inch screen, which has a frame with a frame inside it, and then there's another little frame, and then you have your Apple CarPlay here. It looks ridiculously small. We also got a volume button here, which is okay, I guess. It's just a little small and fiddly. It feels like you're twisting a nipple more than anything. And when you turn it, you might easily like hit some other buttons with your fingers on the main screen. Fortunately, the driver's got volume controls on the steering wheel as well. If we move over to the steering wheel itself, it's a nice, chunky, relatively small steering wheel. And I like the buttons that we've got on each side of the steering wheel. They're well functioning. They're intuitive. They're not fiddly or touchy or anything like that. That's good. I like the feel of the steering wheel. In fact, I like the whole feel of this car inside, but we'll get back to that. Over the top of the steering wheel, there is the binnacle display. The binnacle display is like placed way out in front, so it feels like I'm driving a jet fighter or something like that, where I have to look really far ahead. It's not quite as good as a heads-up display, but it's not quite as far down as a typical binnacle display either. Sort of in between. Now there is a disadvantage to this, and it is that the arch of the steering wheel will at times cover the screen, depending on how tall you are. So I actually have to put it all the way down in order to be able to see the screen, in full. If you are shorter than me, then that won't do. I'm 1.90 m or 6'4", but I guess my normal steering wheel position would be that, but I can't really use that because it covers up half the screen. Other random strange buttons is that down here we got the odometer trip button, and then we have the button that turns up and down the display brightness. Couldn't these have been functions inside this display? It's not like you need them as physical buttons there. On the left-hand side, you got one to activate the automatic lighting and another 2 buttons that are just dead switches, do nothing, and remind you that you're poor. The materials on the inside are solid. I mean, super solid Toyota materials. It feels like you can't break this thing no matter what you do to it. This here cloth is actually quite nice on the seats. It's not the leathery thing that you sweat too much when you use it in Spain. It breathes and it's solid, and it feels like if your dog vomits on it, you can just wipe it off and it'll be fine. And this whole thing about having solid materials all around is just a typical Toyota thing, right? It's really, really good. Visibility is also absolutely excellent. I've got a massive rear view mirror in the middle, and side door mirrors are big as well. It really, really helps with visibility in this car. And this here little window just below the A-pillar also helps with the blind spots. The A-pillar isn't too thick either. Really like the visibility available to me here. Ergonomically, except for the thing with the steering wheel, it's really good. It's comfortable. I've driven this car now for a week and taken it everywhere, and I really like both the feeling of sitting inside here and the way that everything is laid out. I mean, yeah, maybe except for a few of the buttons, but other than that, it's good. Build quality is excellent. The materials are, not luxury, they're good materials, but the way that they're all stitched together, it means that nothing creaks, nothing squeaks, everything is Toyota solid build, and it feels like this car will last 30 years. Let's see how much space is in the back of this car. Wow, there's so much space in the back of this car. Look, I got knee room, even though this seat is adjusted to my driving position, and I'm 1.90 m. I've got headroom, I've got plenty of elbow room and shoulder room as well. In fact, if I put this down here, I've got 2 cup holders. I can put my mobile phone there. I've got 2 USB chargers in the middle. Wow, I love this space. And the fact that I don't have a transmission tunnel means that 5 people could actually easily travel here. Plenty of space, good solid Toyota materials. I like it. You see, one of the problems with this car is that it's quite basic technology-wise, but the basic stuff is confusing as well. There's a lot of different menus. For example, I want to change my language of the screen from Spanish to English. Done. But now I also have to go into somewhere else. Let's see if I can find it. Navigation, guidance, and there I also have to change the language to English. And if I go to the navigation here,
the route guidance will start now.
As you see, the route guidance will start now. I get it in miles, but even if I change it to Spanish and metric units, I still get it in miles. I don't understand that. If I plan a route, like I've done here, let me show you. I've planned a route from here close to Madrid, where I am, to Berlin, and it's actually found chargers on the way, which is good. However, the information about the chargers is a little bit funny. Look, if I click on this one here, it'll tell me about the first charger. And this is one that is about 100 miles from here. And it's going to say GVS G105 CHAdeMO. Number of connectors, 1. 500 to 500 volts, DC 100 amps, IEC 62196-3 Type 2 combo Menekes. There's one connector, it's DC at 100 amps. Gobbledygook, technical gobbledygook. You really have to be an expert to know what kind of charger this is and why is it recommending me to go there. Just tell me how fast it is, if it's occupied or free, and how many connectors there are. That's about all I need to know. All of this is just confusing. It also doesn't actually tell me too much about how much energy I'm going to have. It'll show that from where I am until about here, I've used half my energy. And if I follow the route, then somewhat after I've stopped at the first charger, I'll be at 20% energy. So it doesn't tell me with how much energy I'm going to have left of the charger, how long time I'm going to have to stop there and charge. Very basic, not super useful, to be honest. Then we have this screen here. It's rudimentary, to say the least. The design looks like something from the late 80s. Other than that, I can do things like configure a schedule. I can adjust the charging current on AC. It's either max 16 or 8 amps. I can set the charge limit to 90%, 80%, 100, whatever I feel like. It's okay, but it's not amazing. You control it with these buttons you've got over here. One thing I do like is that this icon here is available, so I can actually turn off the speed sign recognition, which will stop it from beeping at me every time I go just a little bit too fast, which is incredibly annoying. Now the rest is all through buttons here, which is okay, but it still feels a little bit old-fashioned here. I would have liked wireless charging. I would have liked a bigger screen. This is an 8-inch screen, but it's a frame inside a frame. There's a 12-inch screen on the higher end trims, but this just looks ridiculous, to be honest. The seats are manual, there's no heating or anything like that, but you know what? That's okay, because this is the entry level, and what I want with this car is a cheap version, so I'll forgive all that. Tech, yeah, kind of old-fashioned, right? Oh, one good thing, I have a wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and I really do like that. That means that if I can leave my phone here, I can leave it charging down below, or I can just leave it in my bag or somewhere. I don't need to touch it, and that is a really, really good thing. I'm using the level 2 driver assistance feature, which is lane keep and adaptive cruise control. I also have speed limiter if I don't want to go above a certain speed, but I still want to drive manually. It's a very good system. It works really well. I've got 7 buttons here on the right hand side of the steering wheel that I can use to control it, reset it, change the different modes, up and down the speed limit, change the distance to the car in front of me. It all works quite solidly. If I want to change lanes, I can put on the indicator, but I do have to change lanes myself. But once I'm in the new lane, the system will automatically grab onto the new lane, so I don't have to turn it on and off. It just does it automatically, which is much appreciated. When I go around a bend like this one here, sometimes it will lower the speed a little bit, maybe to make sure that it doesn't exit involuntarily the lane, but it kind of works okay. I'm quite happy with this actually. I've had no incidents of it turning off when it should be on, and I've had no phantom braking or anything like that. Now it detects the driver by torque, so I have to hold on to the steering wheel and use a little bit of torque. Now some of the units have this infrared little camera here that will automatically detect the driver if he's paying attention, but this one doesn't have it. I don't know if this is because of when this was produced, this particular unit, or maybe it's the trim level. So it only detects me by having my hands on the steering wheel and, you know, the slight torque I exercise on the steering wheel. It's not capacitive like a screen of a mobile phone, so I do have to actually grab onto it. Now it is collaborative, so if I want to adjust inside the lane, so if there's a pothole I want to, you know, avoid it, I can still do that. I can still manage the car inside the lane without the system turning off the lane keep assist. So maybe not the most advanced system, but it does the job very well, especially when you're doing a long road trip like this, just on the highway when there's a lot of straight highway or slight curves there. Good system, Toyota. Okay, so I'm just going to turn on the driver assistance feature, which is lane keep and adaptive cruise control. And I'm on a secondary road now, I'm not on the highway anymore. I think maximum speed here is 70 kilometers per hour, which is relatively slow, but here comes a curve. And the car's not happy about it. It wants me to take over. It's a good system that works really well on the highway, but it's not a system I would recommend using on secondary roads. Slight curves or anything just slightly out of the ordinary, and the car just gives up. So what's the best thing about this Toyota then? It might actually be the price. You see, this car is available from just 34,500 euros, and that's without any government subsidies or anything like that. If you were to look for other cars similar size at a similar price point, you'd have to look at the Leapmotor C10 or maybe the new MGS5 EV. Both of them might be brands that you'd think aren't exactly the same image of reliability that we get from Toyota. If you were to look for a more, I'm not going to say reliable, but at least a brand that gives the image of more reliable vehicle, you might look at, for example, the Skoda Elroq or maybe even the Renault Scenic. But in both cases, you'd have to pay 42,000, so significantly more for a vehicle of similar characteristics. So the price point for this car, I think, is extremely competitive, and you can tell because since they've dropped the price towards the end of last year, the Toyota bZ4X has been one of the top 10 best-selling EVs in Spain ever since.
And now it's time for the final summary for the electric Sam for the Toyota bZ4X. Traveling. We managed 327 kilometers of real-world range with an energy consumption of 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer, which is actually quite decent for a mid-size SUV. The test was done at 27 degrees, which is about 80 Fahrenheit, no wind, and an average speed of 115 kilometers per hour, which is about 71 miles per hour. So it's not impressive, but it performs reasonably well. For that, we give it 7 points. Charging. This is one of the weak spots. It took 26.5 minutes to gain the equivalent of 200 kilometers of range, or 124 miles. The maximum charging rate reached was 130 kilowatts, which falls short of the claimed 150. On top of that, there was barely any useful charging information on the screen, which is quite frustrating. There is no vehicle to load or bidirectional charging at all. However, it's the first car we've ever tested that lets you limit the DC charging power manually from the car. It's quirky, but might be useful sometimes. So it gets 4.5 points for charging. Driving experience. This is not a sporty car, but it doesn't pretend to be either. It goes from 0 to 100 in 7.4 seconds, and the ride comfort is excellent. It's smooth, quiet, and feels like a proper Toyota. Brakes are good, suspension is well balanced, and while the regenerative braking doesn't bring the car to a complete stop, it's still usable and effective. We give it 6.5 points for driving. Interior and build quality. This is classic Toyota. The materials feel solid, the fit and finish are excellent, and it gives you the impression this car could last forever. That is exactly what you want from a Toyota. There are two downsides though. There's no glove box, which is odd, and depending on your seating position, the instrument cluster can be partially blocked by the steering wheel. That's why it scores 7.5 points for interior and quality. Exterior and design. The design is modern and practical. I mean, just look at the thing. It doesn't look like a classic Toyota. It's all aggressive and funky, which is a great plus. But the charging port is poorly positioned, which makes daily use slightly more annoying than it should be. Even so, it gets 8 points for exterior and design. Technology. This is where things fall apart. The infotainment screen is only 8 inches, and while a larger screen is available on higher trims, it looks like an afterthought. The interface is clunky and outdated, and the navigation system is overly complicated. When you check charger info, you get a wall of useless technical data that doesn't help the user at all. The only redeeming feature here is wireless CarPlay. So just 4 points for technology. Driver assistance. The bZ4X has a level 2 driver assistance. The interface is user-friendly and the system works well. It can't park itself, but otherwise, it's a decent experience behind the wheel. That's worth 6 points for driver assistance. Price. And now we come to the big surprise. At $34,500, this is a well-built, reliable, brand-name electric SUV for the price of a compact. Add to that the possibility of government subsidies, and you have one of the best value-for-money EVs on the market. That's why it gets 9 points for price. And that brings the final score for the Toyota bZ4X to 69 points in our electro-exam. It's not a perfect car, but it's well built, reliable, and priced in a way that makes a lot of sense, especially if you want peace of mind and simplicity in an electric vehicle. You can compare this score to other cars we've tested on our website and even adjust the weight of each category based on what matters most to you. You'll find the link below in the description.
So that is the Toyota bZ4X, and I have to admit, I do like it as a car. How it drives, how it feels, how solid it is. You know, it's a true Toyota. I think they can improve massively on how it functions as an EV, how the software works, how the charging and all that stuff works. But I'm sure that Toyota will get there eventually. If you'd enjoyed this video, I'd very much appreciate a comment down below, a like or a subscribe. See you again soon. I'm Lars and you've been watching Totally Electric. Ciao!